Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Morrow, right? I got it. I said it right?
You got it, like tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good. So let me tell you a little bit about Cass. Cass cataloged everything that he could remember from working with women, beat up dozens of books, which I love that, took multiple courses and hired coaches and mentors. Cass went on to build his own complete course covering what other resources were missing and using it to mentor men. The More Sex, Better Sex Marriage Reset. Now, with only a few months on social media, Cass began making waves. Kathryn and Cass, his wife, are determined to revolutionize. Their purpose and mission is to save your marriage too. So, Cass, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you, sir?
I'm incredible, man. Thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you. First of all, so Cass, tell us, what was that journey like to get here? You went through ups and downs of marriage. You saved your marriage. So what was that journey like? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have?
All right, tell us a condensed version.
So, the real quick condensed version is that my wife and I were hot. We were heavy. And by the way, I know you got a lot of dating men listening, so I'll just say this stuff applies to everything.
I agree. I definitely agree there.
Glorified dating advice is everywhere, and that's what it is. Glorified dating advice, BS. Actually, you need to, if you want a long-term sustainable relationship, you need to be able to apply lessons like what I've got. But yeah, so we were hot, we were heavy, we were on fire. I mean, it was everything that I ever thought I needed, and things I didn't even think were possible. I mean, you see the examples in society of divorce and how things are going, and the role reversal. That I think feminism and toxic masculinity is actually society's marriage, personally, the one that's failing. Right. I followed in those footsteps, the lessons that I learned, the examples that I was seeing, and I fought for my needs, man. I fought for my needs and did it the way that we're taught to. And what happened was I just kept on building the wall between my wife. But there's a catch. I was as bad as they come. From the emotional, physical, sexual assault, when I started making my changes, my wife did not believe me. I was on probation. If I messed up, then she thought, well, not that she thought, I would go to jail. So she thought that my changes were just to keep me out of jail. And wow. I mean, narcissism, the toxic behaviors. And what I learned was I had to just keep showing up the right way. I had to keep learning the resources that are out there. I mean, there's phenomenal resources out there, but the problem is that they're not complete. And here's the thing, you talk about you thought that was cool that I beat up books. You know how many authors have incredible information and the people don't even realize, even when they're reading the author say it, yeah, but I'm divorced and now it's working for my new relationship. Yeah, that's great. But I didn't quit. I figured it out. I led my wife. I got her back, but it was frustrating. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of undoing some programming, but man, we are lit up. And if we did what everybody else said we should do, yeah, my twins would have 2 homes. My son wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the phenomenal marriage, the incredible, passionate, intimate, emotionally connected, and sexual marriage. Like it's on fire, So yeah, that's the kind of condensed version. Oh boy, we could go on and on though.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get on some of the topics. But one of the things, Cass, and this more than probably any other guy, that I think once a woman makes up her mind that she's got one foot out the door, that second foot is going to follow immediately. And maybe in some cases, maybe in most cases. And again, I guess depending on the statistic where you get it from, 70 to 80% of women initiate divorce. Again, depending on where you get the statistic from. My God, you came back, as they say, from the marriage abyss and reignited everything. So tell us, once you knew that it might not work, how did you get it back not so quickly, but how did you get it back? What did you work on besides yourself? Did you work on her? Did you work besides yourself? Did you work on her? You beat up books, you beat up courses, you come up with your own course, which we'll talk about in a minute. Man, how did you do it?
Well, I didn't really have a good place.
Being all over the place,
Well, that's what it was. It was all over the place. I didn't have a really good solution to start with, right? Yeah. I mean, you hear people say, well, you shouldn't yell. right? Well, you
Mm.
shouldn't lie. There's all these different things we should and shouldn't do, and we should know better, but you don't know what you don't know until you know. That's
Yeah.
just it. If you were programmed as a child to react certain ways because your needs weren't met or whatever, and the bottom line is, I mean, even if you're in a long-term relationship, if you're dating, whatever, if you're not getting what you want, like you don't feel so good. So you start to defend yourself. You start to go. So I didn't even know where to start. I was forced into things like anger management. I'd already done at that time 12 years of therapy, and then two of those were with my wife, and then there's the following 2 more years.
Yeah.
And like, you're doing what people tell you to do. You don't really know. Another example would be happy wife, happy life. That's what they tell you to do, right? It's a big joke. And we apply it to dating, we apply it to marriage, we apply it to freaking everything. And so there wasn't really a finite path to take. That was one of the problems that I had. Spoke to pastors, I spoke to friends. I was one of the guys who was not afraid to ask for help,
Yeah.
which is what I find very uncommon. Most men, I mean, men don't comment on my social media going, "Oh yeah, my wife doesn't want me," right? Women will often complain. Too bad men aren't seeing this. Well, those men are reaching out. The men that the men that are complaining are victimizing themselves. That's it, right?
Mm.
And so I was the other way though. One of the reasons why I could create a program is because I wasn't afraid to start asking questions. I wanted direction. I wanted to fix it. I knew there was something more. About 2.5 or 3 years into the marriage, I said to my wife, "This is amazing. We're fighting every 3 days." And to me, it was amazing. It was,
Right.
wow, this is not fighting every day or being angry and having an anger binge for 3 days or a week. And she looked at me, William, she was like, "Honey, that's not normal." And at that point, I clicked and realized that
Mm.
this is why anger management isn't working. This is why the techniques that we're given aren't working. There's nobody teaching you that there's a better way. There's a better feeling to chase. And
Right.
so at that point, I started to just dive into books and start hiring coaches and mentors, and started to really go, okay, well, what am I missing then? If I can, like, how do I feel what I want to feel? And there was nothing really out there. I had to create my own exercise to dive into anxiety if I felt insecure, like she was going to cheat or whatever. I had to figure out how to get out of it. And then
Mm.
through the different resources, I was like, oh, this makes sense because I did this, and over here, this is what happened, or this is what the women said at the gym, and so I just kept on applying and applying, applying. And then when I went viral last year, just a little over a year ago, all of a sudden it was like 200 men overnight. And so I was like, oh, damn, my course is not complete. Like, these men need this part. These men need this part. I
Right.
didn't explain this right. And so yeah, it's just evolving process of what else can we learn, man? You learn at a rate of like 10 times as much and 10 times as fast the more you keep learning, man. Like, I'm so far into it. I'm like, I already know that. Keep going. Like, you can skim a book so fast. Oh, wait, rewind. That's new, you know?
Right.
So yeah, it's
I,
pretty cool.
I like that. I think to me what you hit, as I say, you hit the home run, was asking for help. Are we as men afraid to ask for help? Is it we don't want to look weak to our brothers and best friends, that we're just basically, no, we'll figure it out ourselves, which is pretty much our DNA. But in your studies and in the course and people that you talk to and the men that reached out to you, is it more common that we just hold our feelings in and say we'll figure it out, instead of asking, like I said, our brothers and our best friends for help?
I think so. I think so. I mean, first and foremost, we're built to fix, to solve problems,
Yeah.
this is who we are as men, right? So
Yeah.
this is kind of embarrassing if we have to ask for help, especially if
Mhm.
it's surrounded with intimacy, right? My wife doesn't want me. This is very hard to admit, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we have that whole problem. And then yeah, I think that men are taught to be pleasing. We're not allowed to feel the same way. I
Mhm.
think there's such power in men speaking with men and unloading. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't do that with your partner, but in reality, if you can do that with men and then bring the right energy home, allow her to feel, women need to feel. We
Right.
just fight for our feelings nowadays with all this, are we allowed or whatever, right? But if you can get out of yourself and embrace the fact that you can ask for help, I'll give you a really good example. One of the courses I took was actually how to be a better lover, right? Which is not exactly what I teach at all.
Right.
That's just for me. And in reality, like, if you think about it, we get our examples from porn, or
Yeah.
we're told to stop talking about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
just supposed to just know P goes in V and ravish her,
Right, right,
right?
right, right.
So there's a great example of how, especially in the dating world for you, for your guys, but like, there's a great example of how it's like, well, I'm kind of ashamed to have to ask for help. I'm supposed to know how to do this and be the strong, confident man when we never had an example. Sex ed told us the logistics of it, but nobody talked about what it means to be confident and not insecure. Who cares if you lose your heart on for a second? What can you do with that? How can you change the situation?
Right.
Right. And so you wouldn't even think to take a course on something like that or read a book on that because it's shameful. Right. And this is the way we've been raised, the way
Yeah.
we've been programmed as men, when it doesn't matter if we're talking about down and dirty in the bedroom or if you're talking about how to communicate and the foundational skills, man. It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing because we're expected to know you shouldn't do that or you should do this. And that's not really, but I don't really care what's fair. I care what works, you
Yeah.
know?
No, you make a good point. I remember there was this one woman that we were friends, and I remember she was saying, "Oh, she was telling me that a man should know what to do in the bedroom." I'm like, "But every woman is different. Some women want you to go down on them, some don't. I experienced both. Some women don't like you when you touch them there, and they prefer over here. It's crazy. Like, I mean, you hit it right on the head that we're expected to know these things, but at the end of the day, Cass, does it come down to communication with our partner? To ask her what she likes, what she doesn't like, because is that a conversation we can have with our partner, especially with our girlfriend or wife? Can you have that conversation and ask her, hey, what is it that you don't like to do? What is it that you do like to do? Is that uncomfortable, or is something we just have to get through it?
I think it's both. I think it's uncomfortable and you have to get through it. And the reality is, yes, you should. I don't like communication too much. I mean, I want to give you foundational communication skills, but I
Right.
think everything should be a conversation. And the reason why that's so important to me is because this way, if it's something scary, like, well, do you like that? Maybe she's quiet in bed and you're just afraid to ask if she likes it. You just need a little bit of direction.
Yeah.
You should feel comfortable having a conversation. But if you're thinking about like communication, it's already a negative undertone. I have to know how to communicate. We have to be able to do that or else we're not going to work. Where if you think about conversation, it's positive, it's easy, it's flowy. It's just
Mm.
so now we can, if it's more serious, we can do that. If it's not so serious, you can practice that for when it is more serious. Right. And then you learn to respond rather than react. But you absolutely have to be afraid. A good way for your listeners to think about it is this: just give two choices when you're trying to understand. Don't let her think about it, right? Just like, is it good or is it bad?
Right.
That's it, right? And then you can get her to communicate and open up a little bit. Also, don't be afraid to do the same as a leadership role, right? So
Mm.
she might not be asking you, but you can say, let's use the bedroom example because I think that's where you're going. But
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I really like it when you do that. I don't
Mm.
like it when you do that. Can you do this instead? Give direction. That's what a woman needs anyway. Now, she might feel insecure about herself and she might respond. Part of the challenging part about becoming a man is being able to deal with that. She's supposed to flow. That's her emotions. It's the
Mm.
feminine. It's how it works, right? Men do it too. They got feminine in them too. The point is to just allow it and let it happen. So, absolutely, it's a must.
Yeah, no, so I like what you said. Have a conversation. That's it. I mean, to me, that's gets down to the nitty-gritty. And also what you said, yes or no. That's it. Just get to the point. So Cass, and we're talking with Cass Morrow. Um, when you decided that you wanted to work on your marriage, you said, I gotta save this, I gotta do this for myself and for her. Um, what were the first couple of steps? Did you work on yourself first and then you worked with her? Does my question make sense there?
Yeah, no, I didn't work with her. So
Okay.
you lead, right? So you have
Okay.
to take the first step is you have to take responsibility for yourself. So
Right.
now actually what I give to men is I give them all the things they're doing wrong first. And so, excuse me, if you think about society's solutions about what they tell you to do to fix a relationship. So let's use intimacy is always the easiest one, and guys are
Sure.
always interested. So
Yeah.
let's just say, we're told to communicate. Communication is key. Piggyback of what we were talking about there. And so you're like, well, why don't you want me anymore? Why don't you want sex as much anymore? Is there something that I can do? And you have these conversations. So you're following society's example of what you should do. Go have a conversation, although they're telling you to communicate. And all you're doing is making her feel guilty. She doesn't want you, dude. She just doesn't want you right now. She doesn't want to have sex
Mhm.
with you. Then that's something to do with you because she wanted to have sex with you before. right?
Mm.
And so when we continue to do things like that, then we continue to turn her off. And that could be from conversation, flirts. I mean, if it's going to lead where she knows she doesn't want it to go, what do you think the conversation is going to be like? Why do you think she puts a wall up and she
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
respond to your text messages? Even when you're dating, guys, like it's crazy. And so the first step that I teach men now is actually different than what I went through. I teach men
Okay.
how to stop automatically turning her off. And then, and again, from everything from conversation all the way up the ladder to sex. Okay. That's the first step. We have to be able to understand that what we're doing is you need to show up as a great man. That's just it. Dating,
Yeah.
married, doesn't matter. That's what you signed up for. It's called life, right?
Yeah.
And if we can do all that without expectation of anything in return, cool. Then now we've got a foundation. Because if we understand that if we turn her off, there's no room for horny there. There's no room for
Yeah.
anything. That's just it. She's turned off. It's not about blowing in her ear, kissing on her neck, none of that shit. That stuff's so irrelevant when you're down the road and you're emotionally connected, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the second step would then be to take responsibility for yourself. I call that being a man in power. Your true, authentic, most confident self, making decisions based off of the fact that you understand you fucked up. You make
Yeah.
mistakes. You're not perfect, but who do you want to be? Her reactions are based off of your past actions. That's not always the case. You may not be the problem, but you are the solution. If you can nobody does this. So if you can take responsibility in your own self and bring that to your relationship, well, it's pretty hard to be at 10 and have somebody not try to meet you. So starting with you can never be a 10 if you're just going to blame. That's it.
Right.
It's just victim crap, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really once you stop turning her off, it's right away. I'm right into taking responsibility for yourself. And that is pretty much the pivotal first step. It falls into something that I call, it's the peace pillar. You got to start building a foundation of security and safety for her, i.e. peaceful enough where she can be her again. If she can be unapologetically her, that woman takes her clothes off and opens her legs up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Wow,
Not
that's
hiding.
deep. Yeah, that's deep. I just think, you know, that most of us as guys that we're trying. Do you see most of us being something that we're not? It's like you touched on it, being authentic, being our authentic self. Are we trying to be something that we're not to a woman? Making ourselves maybe more than we are. Hey, we're a 9 to 5er, but no, I'm working on this to become my own boss. Oh no, I'm doing this to secure my own financial, needs and gains. Are we not being our authentic selves? We're just trying to make her want us, for lack of a better phrase, that we're not the man that we really are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Robert Glover coined it nice guy syndrome back in like 30 years ago, right? And
Yeah,
it's
that's like such a deadly phrase when a man hears it now. Oh, you're such a nice guy. Yeah, you being in the friend zone now.
well, 100%. But at the same time, the syndrome that he's coined here is like, it's crazy. It's you're doing everything to give to get. So even just that, even
Mm,
praising yourself, trying to get her to validate you back,
mm.
right? When you just gave such a beautiful example. So I'm a 9 to 5er and I want to tell her how I'm building this big new business venture and we're going to be so taken care of, trying to get her affection and provide her security so that you can get the love and adoration and edification as this big man, when you probably watched too much Netflix, played video games, scrolled on social media, maybe even did some porn time, and all that time could have been used to do something towards actually
Yeah.
building it. Here's a better example would be like, if you can start to if you start to really think about things, you went to the grocery store for an hour, you cooked dinner, whipped it up, you cleaned the kitchen up. But if you actually got valuable, you pay for a cleaner, you call Instacart, you might even do skip the dishes, and you just go made $2,000 for that hour instead, right? So
Right.
stop talking your way into your wife's head, heart, vagina, or whatever, and just follow in line with the man that you want to be. I
Mm.
call that a man in control, right? That's really where we dial in the most authentic self. And you got your core values, this is how you can make decisions. This is how you're not happy wife, happy life in it, or people pleasing, because you believe in what you're saying, you know?
I like that, the people pleasing part. Are men just there to please their women? And I'm talking about verbally. I'm not saying physically, but verbally, because we want her to, we want her affection, we want her approval, we want her, to only look at us and not other guys. Are we crossing that line where, like you said before, we're not being authentic, but also we're just trying to please her at our happiness, at our value cost? Does
Yeah, I think it's a massive problem. So I love No More Mr. Nice Guy, Dr. Robert Glover's book that we talked about. But
Yeah.
what I've learned from working with so many men is even if you didn't have this terrible parenthood,
Mm.
your parents weren't abusing you, like the no matter what, let's just say we enter the relationship, we're this great provider and we thought we did our job because we're providing and we're protecting. And by the way, you're not really sliding across the hood of BMWs too often to save your wife from kidnappers. But if you are, you're in the wrong neighborhood. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, like if your wife and you lose that connection, that intimacy is not truly there. I say I define a sexless marriage as a marriage that's, sure, like everybody says, 6 months or more without sex, but also she's checking it off a to-do list. Okay.
Oh wow.
When you can tell that your wife or your girlfriend your fiance is not actually into you, is just doing it because she's, maybe it's a wonderful heart. She's doing it because she wants to honor the relationship or whatever. Or if she's doing it because it's part of her commitment and her vows. If she's doing it because she wants to make you happy, if she's doing it out of fear, you can tell if she's sleeping with you and she doesn't actually want to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, I don't care, abusive or not, which is kind of more like the premise of No More Mr. Nice Guy. What I have learned is if your wife is responding to you this way, it's pity sex, it's job sex, it's whatever, then what happens is you become this wife pleasing or girlfriend pleasing man. We were already taught that, by the way.
Yeah.
Fathers going off to war is what really started this, right? The examples that we were shown was by our
Yeah.
mother, getting her needs met, trying to make mama happy. Then teachers were women. Men were out at war, and so there was no male teachers.
Yeah.
And this just carried on and carried on. And if you build your paradigm, your programming, you edit it as you grow up in life with the next relationship and the next relationship. Now you're amplifying insecurities. And so you almost can't help it. It's like, and by the way, your wife or long term, if you're living with her, she did it to you too. She was like, no, I got the dinners. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Right. You stopped saying what I want for dinner. You just enjoyed the ride. This is amazing. She's taking care of me. She's picking up my dry cleaning. She's doing all these things. And so now she's making all the decisions, and now you don't want to upset her because now the intimacy is gone. And now you're just like, oh man, well, if I upset her, she's not going to want me later. Like now I'm going to have a fight on my hands, or we're not even going to touch it. It's already been a week, it's been 3 months, whatever. It's like, so you almost are forced into this people pleasing. I actually defined it as two. You either choose the path of toxic, or you forced into the path of the nice guy, people pleasing, right?
Yeah.
You
And then we
gotta
have to
you gotta
walk
be
on
somewhere.
eggshells then, right? I mean, because now we're at that moment that, like you said, if I'm going to upset her, oh my God, I better not say this, or I better not try this. It's that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you hit it right on the head, because I've been in that relationship where I was dating this woman, and I felt like if I said anything, or if I did anything, or if I gestured somehow, I was going to upset her, and I didn't want to do that. And at the end, Cass, it just ended badly,
Mhm.
because I wasn't my authentic self. So sorry about that. I didn't mean to, but
No,
you
please.
hit
This is
such
what
a,
it's all about.
you hit such a good point about, pity sex and among other things. So yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really it. Like you just got to understand that of course, there's sacrifice in any
Yeah,
relationship. Of course, there's
sure.
compromise in any relationship. But in reality, what, excuse me, we tend to do is we tend to give up who we even are.
Mm,
We just seem to let it go. We tend to we have our wife, our job, and our kids, and it's like, okay, I'm doing it.
yeah.
Well, no, she's just looking down on you, man. You're putting her on this big pedestal where if she's looking down on you, she can't. And don't get me wrong, like I worship my wife, but it's different because I'm also very comfortable with myself. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm also, I know who I am. I know my purpose. I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what's going on in my life day to day, all the time. And then I show up. I'm the big, bad, fast race car. My wife's just the racing stripes on my car. You know what I mean?
Nice. Yeah, no, I get it. First of all, Katz, I want to thank you so much for being on People and Dating, taking time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate it. And before I like to do just a couple more things, talk more about your course.
Oh yeah, so simple. Like you go into my course and I give you all the tools. I build you into a race car too. And
Yeah.
so with all the parts under the hood, that's it. You can go hit the track. You can show up consistently. That's one of the big problems with men. You're not reliable. You have no integrity. You might have it at work, but not at home. And
Uh-huh.
we've got to follow through. We've got to be consistent. So I build you into a big bad race car. Then I get you running consistently on the track with my course. And then what'll happen is I'm going to teach you how to get her to rip your wheels off, steal your gas line, run into the side of your car, try to get you off the track. The deal is if you're not really happy in your relationship, 90% of the time, or probably higher, your wife's the leader. She's setting the pace for the race. So the
Mm.
course is some videos, do some homework. You use the men in my support group and we go on the coaching. It's a program. But the
Yeah.
idea is within 90 days, you go get your wife. Right. And I do get a lot of guys that are not married too, and you know, guys that are trying to improve or be
Oh, I'm
out.
pretty sure that works for both, for both, for married men and single men. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, hands down. Yeah, like as I said, the stuff that I saw out there was glorified dating advice, or this is a communication technique, or whatever. You know, the
Yeah.
point is to put it together, and you learn a lot of things from how to be a great man, how to be a great, I say husband, but we could say partner, how to be a great father if you have kids. This works if you have pets. You know, how to be a great man in life, a man with purpose, a man who's going to be leading in life. This is so important, and this is what the world needs, or else we're all becoming people pleasing. You know, well,
I
doormats, really. It's a
yeah,
bunch
no,
of
I
or the aggressive overcompensation of that, right?
yeah, it's such a it's such a fine line between that, in my opinion. So, and if somebody want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Easy, RyanCassMorrow.com. Ryan's the old guy that couldn't get laid and pissed his wife off all the time. So I go by Cass now. So RyanCassMorrow.com. And we interview you. That's really what we do. We want to know if we
Yeah,
can help you. We're trying to flip divorce statistics. So you got to apply. You got to see if we can even help you first, you know.
yeah.
And from there, we rock and roll. We go get your wife
No, sounds good.
or
Well,
life if
again,
it's a woman. But yeah.
yeah, no, no. Either way, it's a good thing. Well, first of all, Cass, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, man. It's always a blast. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye bye.